You ever cram for a test? You memorize a formula, ace the quiz, and then poof, it's gone a week later. Yeah, we've all been there. Well, today we're going to dig into why that happens. We're going to talk about the massive difference between just knowing about a subject like physics and actually truly getting it. And this quote right here, man, it just nails it. It's the whole idea we're unpacking today. That half-gained knowledge, it's just a shadow, right? You know something's there, but it's fuzzy, you can't really grab it. But practical experience, that's like holding the real thing in your hands. You feel its weight, its texture. That's the leap we're talking about. So, this whole shadow thing, it leads us straight into what the source calls the knowledge illusion. It's this super common trap where you think you're learning. You spend all this time memorizing formulas, you feel productive, but really, you're building this house of cards that's going to collapse the second you get a question you haven't seen before. Okay, let's make this real. F equals ma. We've all seen it, right? And with that half-gain knowledge, yeah, you can totally plug in the numbers. Mass is 5, force is 10, boom, acceleration is 2, you get the A on the quiz. But, and this is the big but, do you really get what that simple little equation is telling you about the universe? And right there, that's where the whole thing falls apart. What happens when the problem isn't just plugging in numbers? What if suddenly you've got a block on a ramp, and there's friction involved, and things get messy? All of a sudden, that memorized formula doesn't feel so useful anymore, does it? That's when you hit the wall of just knowing the shadow. So if that's the problem, what's the fix? Well, it's all about getting beyond the formula. It's about building real, practical understanding. It's time to stop staring at the shadow on the wall and actually turn around, pick up the object, and see what it really is. And this is what that looks like. This is the big shift. True understanding of F equals ma isn't about getting the right number. It's about being able to explain why. Why is it harder to push a full shopping cart than an empty one? Well, you've increased the mass, so you need more force to get the same acceleration. See? You're not just a calculator. You're actually thinking like a physicist, using the concept to understand the world. And this isn't just about F equals ma. This idea applies to everything. Look at this example with Faraday's law. On one side, you've got this pretty intimidating equation, right? On the other, you've got a coil, a magnet, and an LED. You're not just reading that changing magnetic fields create currents. You are literally making a current. You see the light go on, you can even feel the resistance change. That's when the equation stops being letters and becomes a story about something you've actually done. Okay, this all sounds great, but how do we actually get there? How do we make that jump from the shadow to the real thing? Well, lucky for us, the source material gives us a pretty clear roadmap, 5 concrete steps. All right, let's run through these. First, derive, don't memorize. Actually understand where the equation comes from. Don't just take it as gospel. Second, solve multiple ways. It forces you to see the connections between different ideas. Third, connect to reality. Go build something, even something simple. Fourth, my personal favorite, teach others. Seriously, there is no better way to find out what you don't know than trying to explain it to somebody else. And finally, the really fun one, ask what if. This last step is so powerful. Ask yourself crazy questions. What if gravity was twice as strong? What if there was no speed limit for light? These aren't questions you can answer by just plugging numbers in. They force you to think from the ground up, to really play with the core concepts. It's creative, it's fun, and it builds that deep intuition. And this is so important to understand. The path you choose, it really, really matters. These two approaches to learning, they don't just lead to slightly different results, they lead to two completely different futures. I mean, just look at the difference. Stick with that half-gained knowledge and you're setting yourself up for panic during exams, frustration when you can't apply what you've learned. Physics just becomes this scary list of rules. But if you go for practical experience, that leads to confidence, to excitement. You start seeing physics everywhere, not as a bunch of disconnected formulas, but as this amazing interconnected web that describes, well, everything. And really, that's the ultimate goal here, isn't it? It's not about being able to recite a textbook. It's about developing what we call physical intuition, that gut feeling for how the world works. It's when the knowledge gets so deep inside you that you don't just know physics, you start to live it. You know, when you look at every great physicist, from Newton to Feynman to Einstein, they all had this one thing in common. They didn't just learn the rules of the game, they played with them. They lived inside the ideas, building thought experiments, wrestling with concepts until they just clicked.
It was like they were having a conversation with the universe.
So as we wrap this up, the real question isn't about how many equations you can memorize, it's about how deeply you're willing to understand them. Mastery isn't some finish line you cross, it's about a choice, a commitment to keep digging deeper. So the only question left is, how deep would you go?